This is the
BrighterSpectrum podcast,
where we illuminate the world of parenting children with autism. I'm CJ, a proud dad to a wonderful 6-year-old with autism. Through my journey, I've discovered the challenges, triumphs, and unique experiences that come with raising a child on the spectrum. Inspired by those experiences, I created this space where parents like you can find understanding, share stories, and learn from each other. Join me as we explore insights, strategies, and support, all while celebrating the brighter spectrum of our children's lives. Now, let's dive in and cast light on this path together. Sitting down with me today is a professional licensed mental health counselor, Heather. She's a mom of an ASD child, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about her story and about her kid, and we'll see where this goes. Heather, thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I am too, and I'm actually really happy that a lot of my guests for this portion of the seasons came out of my immediate local area, because it's like maybe we can relate to each other a little bit more, kind of coming from almost like the same communities and stuff. So it's really nice to be able to talk to you all.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before we kind of get into it a little bit, do you want to hit us with a little background on yourself, and then we'll kind of move into talking about your kids?
Yeah, sure. So like you said, I'm a licensed professional counselor. I work for Carbon Lehigh Intermediate Unit. And then I also have a son with autism. He's 8 years old. His name is Mikey. And then I also have a 6-year-old daughter who's neurotypical. So yeah, it's just chaos every day, and just kind of trying to figure this out and navigate it. And yeah, so that's life.
It always reminds me of that, like when people say that it's like chaos and stuff every day. It's like, as a parent, you're just sitting there sipping a cup of coffee, maybe looking at your phone, and like the house is shaking and pictures are falling off the walls and stuff around you, and you're just completely oblivious to it.
Yeah. It's like, it's all the TikToks and memes and stuff like that. It's just, kind of brings me some peace knowing that other people are experiencing too. I don't think just in like our home with son with autism. I think that no matter what your life looks like with children, I think a lot of people are experiencing that, but you just kind of have to laugh at it.
Well, it's like people always say, like when kids are quiet, then it's time to go figure out what they're doing. With us autism parents, when our kids get quiet, it's probably time for 911.
Yeah.
Are they still in the house? Like, that's a very real concern for us.
Yeah. Well, we actually have the opposite, where our son likes to go upstairs in his room, and he kind of like shuts us out, and he goes on his swing, and he plays on his tablet or like lines up his toys. So he will stay quiet. It's our neurotypical daughter that we're like, you've been quiet for a little bit too long. What's going on? And she has arts and crafts ripped apart and paint everywhere. And, so.
The peanut butter jar is open and on the cabinets.
There. Yeah. Everywhere.
My son actually did do that. He got into a bag of flour. He was like 3, and it was just like one of those times. So I used to have like this big plastic baby corral, right? Not like a playpen, but like the actual like fencing that you put up inside your house.
Yeah.
And I had to use the bathroom, so I put him in his corral, and I went upstairs to use the bathroom. I was only in there maybe like 2 or 3 minutes, nothing crazy. And I come back down, and in that 2 or 3 minutes, and I didn't know he could do this, lifted the corral, went underneath it, and then went in the kitchen, tore apart a bag of flour. It was everywhere. It was all over him. God. And, so I come down the stairs, and this child who should have had more colors than just white on him comes running past me and lifts the corral and goes back in.
Oh my gosh.
And he's leaving footprints. And I'm like, what? What?
You got to give it to him. He's smart.
You know what they all are. All of these autism kids are little geniuses in their own way.
They
are. Whether they use that for good or evil, they're like the gray Jedis of humanity.
Yeah. I've actually heard even like kids who are nonverbal, I've heard recently, are using like their toilet like the little pictures of the toilet to like alert the teacher that they have to go to the bathroom, and using it, and they're like starting to notice patterns that they're trying to get out of like specific work time and stuff. So, they figure it out.
Yeah, I don't know if you've noticed this too, but like when we think about these kids and like them being like special needs or having a disability, we always seem to like I guess like the best word to use is like underestimate them, right?
Yeah.
And when you actually pay attention, they are very very typical children. Like they do the same stuff that regular neurotypical kids do. They just do it different.
Yeah.
And and you just end up watching them and you're like, I didn't expect that to go that way. But yeah. Yeah, that's about right for your age. Like
Yeah. I think that's probably one of the things that I'm like navigating the most is exactly that, like not underestimating my child, because I want to like nurture him and love him almost kind of like, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but like, oh, he has autism, like I need to like help him learn blah blah blah, and he is completely capable of doing a lot of things. You know what I mean? Like sometimes when I see therapists and stuff work with them, I'm like, I want to like run into his rescue because they're pushing him really hard, but he is
mhm.
capable of doing these things, and I need to kind of just like let go and let him be pushed, and let the professionals push him and know that he is capable of doing these things and he doesn't need to escape, and if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and tell me if you can relate to this, but like I didn't really cuz like nobody I know has kids with autism and, I guess I have to go get an evaluation for myself because it's possible that I have autism. It's been recommended that I do it. I've just been very lazy about getting over there to do that, which is apparently a symptom of autism as well. And so like I no experience with this. So like I kind of uh underestimated a lot of stuff that he can do. And one thing that I did find, and I think it's hilarious, but it was also extremely relieving, was the fact that he tries to lie to me occasionally,
Hmm.
and he's just really, really bad at it, right? Like he'll have like a face full of chips and the whole big family size chip bag in his hand. I'm like, dude, you eating chips? And he like hide it behind his back. He's like, no, crunch, crunch, crunch. And I'm like, "Mm, all right. And I'm like, well, it's not good that you're lying to me, but I'm kind of glad that you are because that's something like that they some of the professionals told me like, you know, that they're very literal, they don't know how to lie, and it's and stuff, and it's just like, well, I mean, that's very typical kid stuff, and at their age they should be trying to do that. And
Yeah.
when he started giving it a shot, I was like, oh, thank God. But the nice thing is that I am able to kind of work that system myself. So like occasionally what I'll do is I'll let him get away with one, right? Because as long as he has like at least some sort of success rate, he never changes his tactics.
Yeah.
And that's like when I stopped underestimating him and I had to start outsmarting him, right? And it's just like,
Yeah.
well, I don't want you to change your tactics. I want you to continue to be bad at this so I can always catch you when it's necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you can
Don't,
relate to anything like that or not.
don't let him know that you know that he knows. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Right.
funny.
He's so zoned into the Xbox right now, he can't he's not even paying attention to me.
Yeah. My son's pretty so he's limited verbal. So he gives like requests, demands, stuff like that, but we don't really have a lot of talks like about his day, or um he's recently been starting to say friends' names, which is like really awesome. We know that he's thinking about him and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, so we don't have too much of that like communication piece. Um but for the most part, he is like a rule follower to the T. He if you tell him not to do something, he will not do it. And he always asks for permission, like, can I go downstairs? Yeah, like, yeah, you live here, you can go downstairs, but he's very much like a rule follower, and stuff like that. So we're really pleased with that, and count our blessings for how much he kind of listens to direction and boundaries and stuff like that.
Did you ever have to like figure out like to get him to like follow the rules like kind of like work with it and sort of like subtly redirect certain behaviors to kind of form that sort of mental state. And like what I mean by that is like with my son, he's pretty good about following the rules, but if I don't have certain things that'll redirect it, he'll break them. Like he knows he's not allowed to jump on the couch. So I have to have a little indoor trampoline for him because if I have that, he'll jump on that and he won't jump on the couch. But if I don't have that, well, it's fair game, couches, beds, the dog, whatever. He'll jump on everything. So I was just wondering like if you maybe had to sort of work those redirections at the same time, or do you just naturally take to the rules like I don't want to break them, I'm good?
I mean, I think that we have had to do some redirections, but maybe it wasn't so black and white for us, like jumping on the couch, like let's get him a little trampoline. I think that we kind of like now that you said that, it kind of makes me think, huh, maybe we should have provided him with some alternatives, but it was more just, if the Oreos were in a cabinet down low and he kept on getting the Oreos and we'd say no, we just put the Oreos like really high. So to kind of like help redirect him or help him from being able to get them. But yeah, maybe there's some opportunities where we should provide him a little bit more of like an alternative solution. Um, but I can't really think of anything like huge off the top of my head that he does that like maybe is more of a sensory outlet for him, like such as like because I would think jumping on the couch would be like his sensory input. But we do have a trampoline in our backyard, so he knows he can use that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse
I
me.
I always found that like with like certain things, like I couldn't stop the action of the behavior, but I could direct the
Yeah,
behavior to an
redirect it.
appropriate source. That way he's not trashing my house, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Probably the jumping is like a good one. He does like to bounce, maybe bounce on beds and stuff like that. So we have like a pretty big trampoline in the backyard. um, and stuff like that. Recently, I saw he used to put things in his mouth that weren't appropriate. Um, just pick up like random stuff for that like sensory input. So definitely like the chewy
Mhm.
tubes and getting him appropriate things to chew on, ice and freeze pops and stuff like that. So yeah, I would say we kind of provide that alternative for him to help like redirect him. Um, but I would say as far as like following rules, like don't go under the kitchen sink because that's where the chemicals are, stuff like that. It's like we've never had to put like locks on cabinets. Or he can go upstairs by himself and we never kind of like worry that he's like getting into something just because he follows pretty like the house rules like really well, if that makes sense.
That's good. That's good because once these kids figure out how to do some stuff, oh man.
Yeah, like he
They
wouldn't get in a flower. I don't think he'd be like that type of person. He's also very clean. So he like cleans up his messes and stuff like that. So I don't think he'd be a flower guy, but
yeah, yeah,
he's
I
definitely an Oreo guy. Well, anybody who knows him knows he likes his Oreos. So
yeah, I have to direct my I'm like, "Hey, time to clean up." And then he like announces it at the top of his lungs, "Time to clean up." And he starts picking stuff up but I have to tell him to do it.
yeah.
He's a bit
Yeah,
of
we'll
a
have to tell my
regular kid
son
in
to.
that fashion. What's that?
We'll have to tell my son too, like it's time to clean up. But he doesn't give an issue like his sister does. So he just like knows that's part of the routine and starts
Yeah.
cleaning up his toys and stuff.
Uh,
So
that is the other nice thing about these kids. If you can turn it into like an enjoyable experience where it appears like it's organized, that was gamer rage. If it's organized or you can make it into a game, um, they're like overjoyed to do it. So like cleaning up, and then like my son loves to sweep and mop the floor, and then now he wants to help me mow the lawn, and I'm like, have
oh
at it,
yeah.
boy, go
Send him over
for
to
it.
my house.
Right.
We'd love that.
Right. The only thing he won't do is the vacuum. As soon as that thing gets turned on, he takes off at about a million miles an hour.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But like let's get more into your son specifically, and like when did you guys start noticing signs, and like how did the evaluation process go for you? Like tell us his story.
Yeah, so I know this is going to sound crazy, but I feel like I knew honestly from the moment that I saw him. I just had like this maternal instinct. So he's missing a muscle in his mouth, um, on the right side of his mouth, right below his lip, and because of that, he had a hard time getting a latch when he was breastfeeding. So from like maybe 2 months old, he had we had a feeding therapist that was helping with this latch. And the feeding therapist just so happened to also be a speech therapist. And I had said to her, because we had like talked about autism and stuff, and geez, Mikey was like maybe 6 months old at this time. And I said, do you think he has autism? And she was like, "Oh my goodness, no, look at, how could you ever think that?" And that will like forever stay in my mind that I asked this, what like I knew so early. There was just like little things that I just like really like hyper focused on. And I didn't know if maybe it was like postpartum anxiety that I was, like Googling stuff about my child, but I just kind of like always knew. So when he was 12 months old, he wasn't really like waving or pointing or he was just blabbling, like not really any words. And I had said something to the pediatrician, and she was like, if you want to get on the developmental pediatrician wait list, it is like a year long. And if he continues not to develop on target, then you have the appointment. But if he does, then you can always just cancel it. And she was like, but sometimes boys are delayed. And it just seems like everyone just kind of like was like, nah, you know, this doesn't really seem like that off the wall, or, these things happen and blah, blah, blah. So I really feel like from a professional standpoint, a lot of people are just like, he'll even out, kind of stuff. And I just was really adamant about getting him on these wait lists and stuff like that. And so he had a developmental pediatrician appointment. It was December 11th, 2018. And the doctor saw him. He was, I think, two. Yeah, he was two at that time. The doctor saw him for maybe 20 minutes, and she was like, yeah, we think he has autism. And I was just like so in my feelings at that point. And I was like, she didn't spend enough time with him, and she didn't do, these evaluations correctly. And I'm getting a second opinion, so we didn't really share with anybody after that appointment. That was through Lehigh Valley Health Network. So we got on the wait list for CHOP. CHOP was another 9 months. But we didn't really tell anybody at that point because we were, that was hard to hear. Um, and we were like, oh, he's still young. And, I don't think they were right and all this stuff. And then we ended up getting a second evaluation in September of 2019. At this point, he was 3, and they confirmed that it was autism. So, um, I'm just thankful I was kind of like proactive about it. We had everything set up already at that point. He had the speech therapy OT. Uh, he had special education. We were in the IU preschool. We had started with like ABA therapy at that point, and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of like his diagnostic story.
It's
Um,
a little bit backwards. Usually, mom is like, "No, no, there's no way it's my kid," and everyone else is like, "Maybe get him looked at." And usually it's the parents, mom and dad, that are real in denial about it. It was kind of backwards for you, though.
yeah, I see that a lot, kind of like professionally, where but from a professional standpoint, it's hard to like tell a parent, I think you should take your child for an evaluation.
Hmm.
Especially being a mom who knows that side of it. It's just it's heartbreaking, and you don't know how to deliver that news or even recommend that, because I can't diagnose autism, but I see it in kids. I see the warning signs, or the red flags. And you just kind of have to know the parent and kind of like know how to approach it and know how to navigate it. And I don't always know how to do that. But for me personally, I definitely was just really in tune to it, and just kind of like I just kind of knew, you know.
Did you have like any like sort of like put off feelings then about the sort of clinical environment because I personally would have felt like I wasn't being heard if I was saying something to these professionals like I really think this, and they were just kind of brushing it off. And you know, is there like, 'cause you're a professional in the field now, working with the IU and stuff. So is there anything like, do you think like professionals could do to seem less sterile and make parents feel more heard? So like, I don't know if you felt that way, like you weren't being heard or not, but that's how I would have felt in that scenario. Is there anything you think that they could be doing to be more human and less medically sterile about things?
Um, I didn't feel that way when it came to the autism diagnosis because my doctor was like, I don't think so. However, let's, do X, Y, and Z. Let's get on that wait list. Let's get started with speech therapy just in case.
Okay.
So in that standpoint, while she said that she didn't think so, she did kind of like help support me in um, my thoughts. I am feeling that way though, how you described about his Mikey has like chronic constipation, and I
Logan
am,
too.
and I'm just going to doctor after doctor after doctor that's like, give him a capful of Miralax every day for the rest of his life. And I'm like, no, there's got to be something else going on here. I've asked for like tests and stuff, and they're just like, oh, his diet's limited, and this is what happens. And so, in that standpoint, I'm feeling frustrated. With that medical part piece of him. I'm not. I didn't feel that way when it came to the autism, though. With the diagnosis, I really feel like I just had such like an amazing team, and a lot of people that were like really supportive during that time. So I didn't feel that way
Hmm.
during the autism diagnosis. No.
Yeah, I'm going through the exact same thing with Logan with the chronic constipation, and he's seeing a GI doctor right now, and they're basically saying the same thing. They had us do a clean out on him, which,
Hmm.
oh, that was a day.
Yeah.
And now he's got the cap full of Miralax every day, and all they can say is once we're able to expand his diet, um, then it should start clearing up. But yeah, no, it is frustrating because they get that, and I can never remember what it's called, but it like with the constipation, it like swells their bowels out, and they can no
Yeah.
longer like feel when they have to go, and they just sort of go, which
Yeah.
really puts a big delay on potty training because like my kid knows how to use the potty, he just has no bowel control right now. It's just like if he's got to go, he goes, and
Yeah.
oh man, and it takes weeks and weeks for that to fix itself, sometimes months depending on the kid. And it's just like, yeah, no, definitely it's definitely frustrating when you really want like some sort of like, medical solution other than give them Miralax and wait for it.
Yeah. Yeah. There was some guy in the Lehigh Valley. His name was Alex. He ended up moving to Arizona, but he like refused to take, the Miralax recommendation. And he actually took his kid to Mexico and did a fecal transplant. To try to get like new fecal microbes, or I'm not a scientist, so I don't know, in the gut, and try to redo it. And I'm not sure how that worked out for him. I know it was like $30,000, but
Yeah, fecal transplant's a pretty drastic measure though. There's a lot of things they can try before it gets to that point.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He just really, wanted to try to find a solution for it, and but I never followed up with him. He moved to Arizona
Hmm.
because he heard that the autism, support down there. He basically moved to Arizona for his kid. So, because of the autism support.
Yeah, that is wild. Like as autism parents, just to the extent we're willing to go and the things that we're willing to do, in order to get these kids like the help and stuff they need. Like I'm currently working myself on a completely different life shift out of the labor world and trying to get to work from home so I can be here for him like 24/7. And
Mm,
I like that. I like being able to be up and moving throughout my day, and like the desk life doesn't really do it for me. But it's almost like as autism parents, like we just don't care about that sort of thing. We're just like, oh, the kids, the kids, the kids.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And I don't know if you have this issue at all, but ours is, finding a place for Mikey to go when we are working. So obviously we have grandparents, but they can't be available 24/7. So as far as like summer camps and stuff like that, I don't know, summer camps, daycares, we've just never really had a 100% positive experience, I don't think.
Yeah.
So we'd rather just do it ourselves.
We're Me and my ex are trying to make that work. We're having the same sort of situation. There's some other factors in there that are making it a little more difficult. Um, but yeah, like trying to find like a sort of like childcare situation is so hard. And we're from the same area. Have you looked into a daycare yet where they've been like, oh yeah, it costs this much, and you're like, all right, well, he's got autism, he does need his diaper changed here and there, and then there all of a sudden the price doubles because he needs special care, and it's like,
Oh, I
I
haven't, but I don't think
yeah,
they're allowed to do that. I'm pretty
it's
sure.
a couple of places that I've called in our area have said that to me, and it was like, wow. And then like you look into like an at home nanny situation, and they want $35 an hour. It's like, dude, I don't even make $35 an hour.
Yeah.
um and and then like just trying to work with medical insurance, it's so hard. It almost feels like that, like maybe like our local government or something could be doing a lot more to help us, with
Oh,
that sort of like unique scenario, and they just don't seem to care.
well, going back to the diagnosis and that whole story. So we took him to CHOP, and she confirmed. They did like a 2-hour evaluation. Anybody who's listening out there and thinks, is worried that their child might have autism, CHOP is a way to go. It's a long wait list, but they were comprehensive. Like it was 2, maybe 3 hours that we were there, and but so they give us this diagnosis, and she goes, he just turns 3, and she goes, I want him to have minimum 25 hours a week of therapy, um, and then speech therapy, OT, the special instruction that he was getting, and I also want him to have minimum 2 days a week neurotypical exposure, like in a neurotypical preschool. So tell me how two working parents are supposed to achieve this. Like thankfully we were in the situation where I could scale back to part-time, and I was you know a caregiver for Mikey and able to take him here, there, everywhere. But what, my heart goes out to these families that can't afford to do that, and there's like no government financial assistance for us. Like we didn't qualify for anything for me to, because we made too much money, but it wasn't enough money for me to not work at all and be able to focus on this child with special needs that needs these therapies that the doctor is telling us is crucial.
Hmm.
The first 5 years of their life is where they can make the most progress. And so they kind of like give you this plan of how you can help your child, but it's just financially unrealistic, for people to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in that same boat. I'm actually with my job hunt considering taking a relatively significant pay hit just so I can qualify for some of those medical assistances that'll get him, because he has like his OT and his speech and stuff while he's in school, but like over summer there's nothing, and my medical insurance through my current job does not cover anything involving that. So even if I were to put him on that, plus that would cost me $300 a month. So it's like it's almost like taking that little pay hit, would be less than paying for the insurance that doesn't cover the stuff that I need but can't afford. And it's a very interesting situation that we get put in, and
So
then
wouldn't his Medicaid cover it?
um to a point. So they came back recently. Like he doesn't have and I don't know if it's his like mom screwing something up or whatever. That's actually one of the reasons like I'm currently applying for a medical assistance to see if I can get like a firmer understanding of what's going on, because this insurance is currently through her because she had like the state insurance too, and all this, that, and the third. And right now they want like $350 a month for insurance, and honest, and it's the same thing. Like, we don't live together, obviously, and she works full time and I work full time. And when is anyone supposed to be able to transport him back and forth to these therapies? And if they come to the house, who's going to be there with him until they get there? And like, it's an absolute disaster. Like, just the way the system is set up to support these
Yeah.
kids, unrealistic for parents to be able to work with.
Yeah. He should qualify though for Medicaid, medical assistance just based off of his diagnosis, and you guys shouldn't have to pay anything for that. That is one thing that I can say, has been a relief for us, is that we don't have to pay for the insurance and all these services.
Do you apply for that? Like, this is actually something we've never talked about on the show. Do you, good Lord, sir. Buddy, it's just a game. It's not that serious. Calm down. You're all right. Um, do you, wow, he's really mad. Well, I mean, don't play that game then. Play something else. Um, so like, do you apply for that Medicaid like directly through Medicaid, or do you have to go through something like Compass?
So it's through Compass, but there is like, if you Google, let me just do a quick Google search. Switch. So if you just like do a quick, okay, so there's a Pennsylvania Enrollment Services, and that's like a 1-800 number. You can call that, but he should qualify like for, you know, the unforeseeable future based off of his diagnosis. So my
Oh,
son, regardless of how much my husband and I make, my son will always qualify for PA Medicaid based off of his diagnosis. So we have like Aetna insurance through my husband, and then we have a secondary through I believe he has AmeriHealth insurance. So we will always qualify for that AmeriHealth based off of his diagnosis.
okay. So then I'm probably right, and then his mom is just not doing something correctly. Okay.
Yeah. So even if he has, so with our Aetna insurance, we have like a $40 copay for his OT, but that AmeriHealth will pick that up. So that is one thing. Like, I know I was just knocking the government for not helping us, but I will say, not having to pay his copays for, you know, all these services that he gets has been. I couldn't even imagine having to pay for that on top of having to scale back to part time or per diem work. So
Yeah.
that's been very helpful. But yeah, I'm happy to, shoot you the link for that, or you just need documentation from your pediatrician. But that shouldn't be a problem for you guys to get that.
No, no, I just call his developmental pediatric department like, hey, let me get a copy of the diagnosis. But yeah, no, that would be great. And then I'll probably include that link into the show notes too. Um,
And
and
there's even, I didn't mean to cut you off, sorry, but there's also even like caseworkers that you can get that can help you with all this stuff. Like if there, I was just saying to somebody the other day that there's, I've learned more from other parents in waiting rooms than I have from, what our doctors tell us, because they don't have the time. They don't have the time to say, hey, you might qualify for this, or, look into this insurance, or, stuff like that. So you just kind of, it's like networking and finding out, what you could qualify for, and
mhm.
ways to save money and tricks and stuff like that. So
I'll tell you what, it would certainly be nice to like, like they the MA I know covers like diapers and things like that. It would be nice if
yes.
they would cover like daycare at like a facility that specializes in special needs kids. It would be nice if they provided that sort of assistance, because we'd be able to provide for our children way easier at that point.
I don't even know of any special needs daycares. you know, so that
So
would be,
there was one in my area. It wasn't specifically special needs, but they offered support. But the problem is that it was $950 a month.
yeah,
Which is nearly a mortgage. It's like, like, like how am I supposed to pay for that and put a roof over our heads?
yeah,
And that's just the conundrum that we all end up in at some point. I know, like a lot of parents here, like I have people that I know who they stay home with their autistic kids, and the social worker that they work with got them enrolled in this program where they get paid to be this child's 24/7 caretaker, but the pay is abysmal. Like I don't know how anyone's supposed to survive on that kind of money, but I mean they're obviously making it work somehow.
yeah,
Um, but there really just like we said before, there really just isn't a whole lot out there when it comes to childcare for us, and that's tough. That's
yeah.
a pretty big challenge.
So we either need like the support for childcare, like either provide, a safe place for our kids to go where we have peace of mind, where we don't have to worry about them getting sent home or having to drive over to change a diaper. So either provide that or provide more financial support to families so that we can stay home and do this, because I would say that's probably the biggest challenge that we've had to navigate with my son is doing this, game of like who's going to watch him and who's working and you know, stuff like
Hmm.
that. And like, I know everybody who has kids has to deal with that, trying to find childcare and stuff like that. But I don't think a lot of people with neurotypical kids understand the struggle of your child isn't like I don't want to say safe, but like your child isn't the right fit at any daycare. Like you can't just call any daycare and say, "Can my child come?" They have to be okay with it. Some require that you come with a one-to-one and it's a lot.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of times even friends and family don't want to deal with that, so your support system goes up in smoke too. You
Yeah.
know, that's
Yeah, I
that's that's
mean,
a big thing for a lot of us. It's just that the support system the neurotypical people have is oftentimes not available to us autism parents.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, our parents have been great, but we have to use them more for like, hey, I'm sick, can you take the kids? Or like, um, they we it's just unrealistic to ask them to watch our kids,
Hmm.
you know, on a regular basis, multiple days a week. It's
Yeah,
just
I'm in the same boat. I mean, in today's economy too, like, like my mother can't afford to retire. She's still working full time, has to pay her bills. So it's like,
yeah,
do you want to watch your grandson? She's like, I would love to, but I don't know how I'm supposed to do that.
yeah,
You know? And it's like, yeah, yeah, I don't know how you're supposed to do that either.
yeah. Yeah, I
But
mean, I kind of like, I always am trying to get out there and be a fixer, and I've looked into like opening a special needs daycare and stuff like that, and um, I don't know if that's something that I personally would like to do, but I I think it'd be awesome if anybody did it. I don't know. Are you familiar with Pennsylvania Mentor, PA Mentor? I think
I
they're a
have
little
heard
speeded
of
now.
it, but I haven't I don't have any direct knowledge or experience with it, no.
So they offer social skills groups, and they offer like a social skills summer camp. And my son loves it. They do so much fun stuff up there, and it's all covered by insurance. Now it's only from 9 to 12 or 1 to 4, um, but I mean, it's great. He's getting therapy. It's drop off. I can get some like grocery shopping done, have a doctor's appointment, get a little bit of work done, and he really likes going and he's learning. So they've been like an amazing resource to us, PA Mentor.
Is it expensive?
It's all covered through insurance, so we don't have to pay a dime.
Oh man. And that's like over the summer?
Yeah, so they offer it over the summer. During the school year, it's offered, I believe, Tuesdays and Thursdays after school, and then on Saturdays from 9 to 12.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
really cool. I'm gonna have to look into that because I mean, That could be the answer because so like I start work at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and then my ex starts at like 9. And if there's a way, like I'm never at work past 2:30, 3 o'clock, and if we could make that work, then I could just pick him up. That'd be great.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Plus,
So you have to get that Medicaid, get that
mhm.
Medicaid, and then call up. But they're awesome, and they do like all types of fun stuff with them. So I think they had like a cooking. They had like Minecraft. It's like all different types of topics and activities and stuff like that for them to do. And they put them with small groups, and they help them with like socializing with peers. And the staff is just like so nice and friendly and resourceful. And they even offer too a parent to parent support group that I like to attend sometimes. So it's offered to parents in the autism community. It's on like Wednesday mornings, I think. But yeah, it's nice. I've met a bunch of nice moms and dads in there. And it's just like a safe place to go and vent about what's going on and struggles and all that stuff.
Mm.
So
Yeah, okay. I mean, yeah, that sounds awesome.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
definitely
not
have to
trying
look
to
into
do a
that.
plug for PA Mentor or anything, but I can say that, they've been they've been awesome. They've been really awesome.
Yeah, if anybody's wondering, we're not getting paid to say any of
I'm
this.
not getting paid to say anything. Nope, just
I would love to get paid to say some of that stuff. If you want to do that, hit me up at BrighterSpectrumPodcast@gmail.com. Uh, we'll solve some of my problems.
yeah.
Um, But, hey, like, at this point, I kinda wanna transition over and start talking about, like, you as a parent, because I've said it before, and I'll say it again, especially for first-time listeners of the show. Oftentimes, when it comes to being an autism parent, uh, we always talk about the kids and their needs and figuring them out, and obviously, that is, like, the number one priority, but what I feel like is never acknowledged is, like, the parents and, like, what we go through and like our mental roller coasters and the things that we look at and struggle with and maybe different things that we're doing that help us get those little victories throughout the day that keep us sane. And I'm in these Facebook groups and whatnot, and a lot of times it seems like people aren't on the same page, and it's kind of a tough topic to say, but like I've secretly infiltrated the mom groups, and I tell you what, autism moms are mean to each other, dude.
They
Like
are. They
they're
are.
they're mean. Like dads, like us dads, sometimes like we see like a little bit of like criticism, but for the most part, like in the dad groups, we're like, keep trucking, brother, hold on, stay with us another day. Like it's like
Yeah,
we're like a bunch of cheerleaders for each other. And then like you get in the mom groups and you're like, dude, like you guys are mean to each other.
they are.
And so like I feel like it's really important for us to like have a little space on the show here to really talk about the parents and kind of give that genuine experience so that people can relate to it and be like, man, I'm not alone, and I shouldn't feel bad for feeling this way because other people feel this way you
Yeah.
know and then there's no space for judgment. Like there's nobody on this episode to tell you you're wrong for feeling that way,
Yeah.
which it shouldn't be doing anyway. But let's talk about you for a little bit. Like you said that you had your suspicions and you pushed and you fought and you advocated. And then what was that experience like for you as a parent? And how are you feeling, you know, currently and like in the present? And like, what are things that you do to help maintain your own sanity?
Yeah. So um I feel like when I got that, I remember when that first diagnosis was, like I said earlier, I was like, oh, it was December 11th, at that day, just, I don't want to set, like you said, like no judgment, but that just devastated me. Like, I just was like, I don't know what he's going to look like. I just wasn't envisioning like worst case scenario down the road. And, you know, I was such a different person then. I didn't know what autism was, and I think I was like judgmental about it, and I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want anyone to judge us. And I wanted my kid to be like perfect and all this stuff. And while Mikey was growing, I feel like I was growing too, and I kind of was like had to like drop this like expectations of what I thought this child was going to be, and like accept him and love him for who he is, and that was a good 3 years of me kind of transitioning, and growing and becoming the person I am today. And I say all the time that Mikey has 110% made me a better person. I think that prior to having a child with autism, I would go to Target and see a kid screaming and say, that mom needs to get it together. Like, look at the way I would never let my kids act like that. And now I go to Target and see a kid screaming, and I'm like, oh, poor guy, he's probably overstimulated. Like, my heart goes out to that mom. He's just, the whole experience has just made me such like a better, understanding, patient, empathetic person. Um, and I wouldn't change it for the world. Like, I think I truly needed that in my life. And I think he needed me just as much as like I needed him in that experience. So I'm at a place now where I could say I'm able to celebrate every accomplishment, every joy, so much, where I think if I had two neurotypical kids, I might have taken a lot of that stuff for granted. Um, he's saying like 5-word sentences now at 8 years old, and we're like over the moon about it. Um, and I'm happy to be like here and not in that judgmental place that I was like when I had a 6-month old and had no idea what was coming my way.
Yeah, that is and you know what, to a point, it is true. Like, you first get that diagnosis, or even like before the diagnosis, like, you know what I mean. You're
Yeah,
like, and there's that time where you're like, why me, you
yeah,
know,
absolutely.
and I mean, dealing with those emotions, I actually personally, I felt guilt a long time for feeling that kind of way. Like, like, why me, man? Like, what? I got enough going on. Like, why? And then you kind of get into that experience, and like the parenting experience with these kids is definitely, it's different, but a lot of it's the same, and they give you a reason to feel pride in them like you would a a neurotypical kid. Yeah, I really got to stop doing that. Like, I keep saying, like, and I've done it on multiple episodes now. Where I'm like, oh, normal, and then autism, and it's like, well, I mean, they're not abnormal.
Yeah,
I don't know. I got to stop doing that. But um, like, and they're very typical in a lot of fashions, and they just process different, and they don't have the same sort of emotional control that a neurotypical kid has.
yeah,
But yeah, like, like you said, like, at first it is devastating, and then there's guilt, and then there's, and but even to this day, there are times where, like, I see other dads doing stuff with neurotypical kids that I just wish I could do with my son. And then there's other times, like, where I finally get to do some of those things. Like, I said on a previous episode, like, I've always wanted to take him fishing, and you typically start that around 2-3 years old. You start taking them. There's absolutely no way he would have jumped into the canal and drowned to death or something. Like, it would have been awful.
yeah,
And I finally got to take him this summer for the first time. He was finally at a maturity level where he could handle that activity, and we had a really good time, and he caught a fish. He was very proud of himself. And like, that was something I waited for, and I had to do it later than other dads. And there's other activities that I see dads doing with their kids that I'm just like, man, I really I really wish I could be doing that. And then
yeah,
I get like the little silver linings too. Like, if we go to Dorney Park, I can go to the office, and we get to go to the front of the line at every ride, and it's awesome.
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't, if you could relate to some of that.
absolutely. Yeah, we say oftentimes there's like a silver lining to autism. One, do you only have one child?
Yes, yes, yes. I've been very careful throughout my life and very intentional with those types of decisions, and fortunately never had any oopsies, you know.
Yeah. But I was just saying to someone the other day that um, our kids like never fight. Because Mikey's just like so passive. If my daughter wants a toy or something, he just gives it to her. So I mean, I can't even really recall any time that they've like gone at it, you know. They get along like really well, and I don't think a lot of families with two neurotypical kids are experiencing that, you know. And then we go to Disney every year, and like you said, we don't have to wait in any lines. And you know, I even yeah, there's you know, being a therapist, working at the IU, working with kids, I see a lot. I see a lot with ways that neurotypical kids are struggling, and you know, like severe depression, and you know, suicidal tendencies, and you know, the kids. And it's like I take a kid with autism that's happy, you know, any day. So
Hmm.
it's just kind of, I think, accepting too. It's easy for me to see in my profession. Might you know, maybe other parents aren't feeling this way, but every single family has their struggle. It's just that ours is a little bit more, you know, front forward, or like people are able to see it
Yeah.
clearer.
Yeah.
Where, you know, behind closed doors, every single family, every single kid is struggling with something, you know.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect.
Mine is struggling to wear his pants right now.
Yeah. Know a couple of people that have that. We don't have that struggle, but we, you know, we have our own. And but like you were saying with the guild and all that stuff, yeah, I mean, I went through I went through like a grieving stage. Like I was saying, I felt very depressed. I kind of got in like hyper 100-mile-per-hour mode, where it was like, you know, when this doctor said, I want you to get 25 hours a week of therapy, I took that as, you can cure him, you know, quote unquote, cure him if you do all this. And I was like, I gotta, you know, I gotta do all these therapies and he's gotta be okay. And, you know, I think what she meant was that he'll be able to, you know, he'll be okay, but there was no cure. And I think that was just like my naive, you know, just me being naive and not wanting to accept it. And yeah, I don't know if that makes any sense, but
Yeah. Yeah. No, it absolutely does. It's like you hit like all you have to hit all the extremes before you finally find that just like middle balanced area where
yeah,
it's like I accept the situation and my expectations for him are going to become more realistic. Like, is he going to bring home the championship in high school for football? Yeah, probably not.
yeah.
But I might be able to teach him how to make macaroni and cheese on his own. If he pulls that off, I'm going to be pretty happy with that situation.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone to some pretty extremes. We drove Mikey to Manhattan to see like an ancient Chinese medicine doctor. You know, I kind of fell through yeah, a lot of people out there, you know, kind of prey on these like impressionable parents that just got this devastating news, and they're like, we can cure your kid, you know. And we spent money on chiropractors that said that, you know. And now I've kind of come to the I've kind of like come to the place where like there is no curing him. This is him. You know, there's things that we could do to help make his life easier and more manageable, but like
Hmm.
this is Mikey. And you know, that worst case scenario that I was envisioning in my head when we were leaving that doctor's appointment, and you know, it's even worst case scenario, like I don't know, is manageable. Like it's not that bad. Like it's not, you know,
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
had to
Yeah.
like face the monster in the closet, and I was so scared of that word of autism. And like, you know, autism, like really, it's not that bad, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, I know I laughed when you said about the Chinese doctor. It really illustrates like the extent that as parents, like we are willing to do anything as long as we think it's going to have some sort of positive impact. And it is kind of fun to look at some of those extreme things and kind of laugh a little bit. It makes it feel a little bit better. And I mean, to this day, that's kind of how I deal with it too. It's just I try to be humorous
Oh,
and
me too.
And that's why I'm actually trying to teach my son how to handle that situation too, because I'm sure you've experienced like when you're out in public, and like you mentioned before, like you would hear a kid crying or something in a store, and you're like, oh my god, get your kid together. And then nowadays you're just like, oh man, do you need a hug, dude? Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
and other parents who don't have kids on the spectrum, they still feel that way. Like, man, what the hell is wrong with your kid? And you know, at times like you'll be standing somewhere and like maybe they're not really like having a meltdown, but you're kind of arguing with them because for whatever reason they've decided they want you to buy the raw squid or something and they've never eaten it. They're not going to eat it. You're like, I'm not doing that, but you're arguing with them. And then somebody's looking at you like, why are you, what the heck? And you're like, autism. They're like, and this is my all time favorite thing. And it's going to sound really, really bad. And I know some parents are going to judge me right now for this, but this is sort of how I'm teaching my son to deal with these kind of people. Because you can't really attribute to malice what people are doing in ignorance. Right.
Yeah.
So, you'll have somebody looking at you having those arguments and go, oh, well, he doesn't look autistic. And I'm like, I love this moment so much. And I used to get angry, but now I just see like opportunity, right? I'll look at my son and be like, Logan, quick, do an autism. And he'll just like let out a pterodactyl screech at these people. And oh my God, it's so funny every time. And then both of us are laughing because now this person is very confused. And
Yeah,
and he's learned to pick up on the humor in that situation.
that's
Right.
awesome.
He doesn't understand why I feel a need to react to people when they say that, like he doesn't look autistic because like with kids with autism they're very blunt and black and white too and they will just blurt out observations
Yeah,
like he comments on my weight consistently and you know so to him it's not like that but like for me like I'm like you're a jerk and
yeah,
then but he does understand that situation can be funny and if he screeches at them we're all going to have a good laugh. Maybe
yeah,
not the person he screeched at. They're going to get confused and walk away, which just makes it even funnier for us.
yeah.
Um, but I know
That's
like a lot of people are like, you really tell your kid to do an autism? I'm like, absolutely. Just let it out on them. Let them have it.
whatever works for you and your family. Yeah. And we love humor in our house too. But I love a good I like the good like condescending like, "Oh, thank you so much for being understanding. He has autism." Like I just kind of, do that. I've actually recently had a woman follow me in the parking lot at Wegmans. Um we were checking out and the conveyor belt like had moved, I was near the cashier at checkout and this woman was behind us starting to load her groceries onto the conveyor belt. And when it started moving, he like raced to the back to kind of like visually stim and watch the conveyor belt move. Is that
hmm
what it's
hmm
called? Conveyor belt? Am I using the right word?
Something
Um,
like that. Yeah.
yeah. And he kind of like smudged her out of the way, because he was, oh, I have to see this. And she did this, like, and I said, oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. He has autism and he likes to look at it move. And she gave me this like stank face. And I was like, okay. So the cashier kind of noticed this uncomfortable exchange that happened. And she goes, oh, your son has autism. She goes, my daughter has autism too. And I said, oh, I'm so glad you understand. There's just so many people out in this world that don't understand and are judgmental. And like, I said that purposely so this woman would hear me. And I saw her out of my like corner of my eye, like, like so taken back. So I go out to my car and I start loading my groceries and she followed me out and she said, I just want to make sure that you know that I wasn't being mean to your child with special needs. I would never be mean to a child with special needs. And I just played ignorant and I said, no, I didn't think that, but I make sure to like get my digs in where I can. I just do it gracefully or, put a smile on my face. So
Oh man, see, I can't hold myself back in that. I wouldn't have been like all nice about it. I would have been like that sort of like sarcastic nice. I'd have been like, oh, no, I didn't think you were being mean to him. I I don't worry about it when people are ignorant.
yeah. Yeah. Well, as much as I hate people being judgmental, I also hate confrontation. So I just try to kill them with kindness. But in my head, it's like, kind of like circling back to you said, how did I like process everything? Um, oh, I lost my train of thought now.
You don't like
I think that I kind of almost like pity those people. Like if you're that judgmental of a kid with special needs, like you need to do some growing in life. You know what I mean? And you're just like, I don't know. I kind of feel bad for you that you've not had that kind of exposure. Like look at how
Mhm.
close-minded you are. So that's kind of where I'm at with
Yeah,
it.
yeah. No, definitely, definitely. It's like people who have no experience or exposure to kids with special needs, especially autism. They live in this neurotypical bubble, which is very narrow, and they don't even realize it. That's why, like I said before, like I try not to attribute malice to things that are born of ignorance,
Yeah.
and it's like, you know, they don't have like you have the kid with autism. You start understanding things from a perspective you didn't even know existed, and all of a sudden that neurotypical bubble just expands, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, I
Mhm.
get it now. I
Yeah.
get it. And like, the parent before that you were judging because their kid was screaming in the store. Now instead of like, oh man,
Yeah.
you're like, I feel so bad for you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like I've
Yeah.
been there. I've been there. Stay
Yeah.
strong, brother. Stay strong.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I almost feel like blessed that I have this, you know, wider experience in the world and greater empathy and understanding for people and stuff
Hmm.
like that. So I feel bad for you. That's kind of how I am, the approach I
It
have in life. So,
definitely makes you more compassionate when it comes to
yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah, I feel like it's really helped me professionally as a counselor. I've kind of started drifting more towards a lot of kids with special needs, supporting parents with special needs. And I do a little bit of like self disclosure in sessions now, where I meet the parents and just saying, like, oh, yeah, I have a son with autism. And I just feel like it makes their counseling experience probably a little bit better that, you know, I know what's going on and might not judge them or, stuff like that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, usually at this point of the show, I kind of go into like, like wins and victories and stuff, but I kind of want to try something just based on our conversation here. I want to try something a little
sure.
different. What is your favorite aspect of having a kid on the spectrum? I like for example, like my favorite thing about having a kid on the spectrum is just his absolute blunt honesty about things. I don't always like what comes out of his mouth. Um, but I do have an appreciation for the fact that he doesn't try to sugarcoat anything with me; just lets me have it. You know.
Yeah. Um, I would say probably his like kindness. He never, you know, never fights with other kids or he's very passive. So if somebody like wants a toy, he just gives it to him. He just kind of, he's unapologetically him. So if he really likes a kid, he like follows them and wants to play with them. But if he doesn't really like a kid, he's like not mean about it, but he just like says that it's time for them to go home. Like he'll tell an adult. Um, so he has this like little buddy Ray that he really likes, but he when he's had enough of Ray, he'll just be like, "Okay, all done. Go home now. Bye." Like he just and everybody like laughs about it because he's not being like malicious or mean. He's just like, "I've had enough of you," and so everyone we have like a great little community in our neighborhood and they all know Mikey and everybody laughs at it and stuff like that. So that's probably just his genuineness and his heart is my favorite about him.
I love that so much because we all of us have those friends who like we love with all our hearts, but those people have no idea when it's time to get out of your house.
Yeah,
And you really want to do the same thing, but you just can't. You gotta like beat around the bush and like throw these hints around. This man is just like, dude, get out. Like I'm done. I'm gonna watch Dino
yeah,
Trucks or something. Like I need you to go.
yeah. He'll sometimes when he has like therapists come into the house, we'll open the door and he goes, "Okay, bye." Like, and he just like tells them it's time to go already. So, but everyone like giggles about it, and just so
He sees him come. He's like, not today.
yeah, yeah. So
That's so
he's
great.
funny. He makes us laugh. He just, he's just a funny guy, and and he has a great heart, and he's a snuggler. We that's one thing we're blessed to have because I know there's a lot of kids on the spectrum that don't like to be touched, and
Hmm.
that's one thing that we feel so blessed about is he's a snuggler. So
It is nice. It is nice. But my kid is too, but he has to be someone you have to be somebody he wants to snuggle with. Like it's he if people touch him then he doesn't like know you too well or anything, like he kind of gets really uncomfortable and will freak out once in a while. But if you're somebody he wants to cuddle with or he has that sort of like I love you emotion for it, he will if you're sitting on the couch, he is on top of you. He's like a golden retriever almost.
aw. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't really like people I don't know touching me either. So, and
Relatable, right?
yeah, I am. I can relate to him on that. But yeah, I think Mikey only really snuggles with me and my husband, but he still sleeps with us. Like he falls asleep in his bed, but he still comes in the bed every night, and he can do that for the rest of his life. We're okay with that. So
Yeah, I'm trying. I have the same sort of situation with my son. There's parts of me that like, oh man, this is great, and then there's parts of me that are like, dude, go sleep in your own room, man.
yeah,
Like I have me, my girl, this dog, this cat. Dude, you got to go somewhere.
yeah,
You have a whole bed. It's all yours. It's
yeah,
just as big as this one. Oh man, no, they realize they're just very
yeah,
genuine people, and I love it so much because like people talk about them masking all the time, like, oh, they're high masking, they're low masking, they try to hide their autism and to like fit in and stuff. And okay, so they try to hide their autism, but they are always 100% genuinely themselves. And most of us, we can't go through a day without trying to hide something from somebody in some social situation that you don't feel like dealing with. And
yeah,
it's got to be on some level relieving to just be unapologetically you
yeah,
in all situations. Like,
yeah. I got to learn that from Mikey a little bit. He can teach me something.
absolutely. Is there any point, oh my lord, I'm oh brain's not functioning today. Is is there anything at this point that you would like to plug, promote, talk about, point people in a direction of at all?
Um, Not really. I mean, I kind of was telling you a little bit before. I'm with the IU. Where I have a daughter who's neurotypical, and I'm trying to get a support group running for kids who have siblings with autism. Just because I feel like I tried taking my daughter to see an individual therapist, and I don't really think that she needed that, but I would like her to have some kind of support or acknowledgement of our family structure, and so I'm trying to get that up and rolling. So anybody in the Carbon Lehigh Intermediate Unit 21 area, be on the lookout for that because I think that's going to be a great resource, for families.
Are
So
are you looking for anybody to kind of like help you get that off the ground?
No, I think it's like pretty much in the works. I'm hoping that it's going to roll out here in November. But I work in behavioral
Okay.
health department, so that's like part of my department, part of what we do and stuff like that. So
Okay, that's
it's
great.
just a lot of like the logistics of, getting it approved through higher management and stuff like that. So
Gotcha, gotcha. And if anybody has any questions about that, is there any way they can talk to either you or maybe get in contact with the intermediate unit
yeah,
to kind of see how
absolutely.
that goes?
So I can give the phone number real quick. I'll just pull it up here. But so in my department, we offer counseling, IBHS services, possibly the support group. We also do medication management and full evaluate psych evals. So my name is Heather, and if anybody ever has any questions or just needs some help, they can always reach out. The number at the IU is 484-408-1192. Um, I'm the only Heather that works there, but also the Autism Parents of the Lehigh Valley page. I'm also an admin on there, so anyone can always reach out if they have any questions. I love talking about autism. I love helping parents, and supporting. So anything I could ever do, I'm here to help.
Awesome. Okay, so that's great. I'm really glad that those services are available, especially to people in this immediate area. And anybody else who has this, and obviously you're not in the Lehigh Valley, there are always similar programs in your area. Just reach out to somebody and ask some questions. It's really important to get the ball rolling and utilize these services when they're available. Um, at this point, Heather, thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
Sure.
This has been a lot of fun, and I'm glad we got to talk about a lot of things that I haven't had the opportunity to discuss with other parents and professionals on the show yet. So it's nice to really have some newer topics and ways to think about things, with every episode. So,
Yeah.
thank you
Thanks for
so
having
much
me on.
for that. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Listeners out there, if you're interested, we do have a Facebook group available. And I think at this point, you're hearing this episode, we should have the Discord up and running. That's currently in the works, and I'm pretty sure it should be up and running by now. Check the show notes for an invite link to that. And if it's not there, then I haven't quite figured all the intricacies of it out yet. But just know that that is coming. And until next time, thank you and have a great day. Thank you for tuning in to the Brighter Spectrum podcast. If you have any comments, questions, or stories to share, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, feel free to reach out to me at BrighterSpectrumPodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care and keep shining a light on the journey of parenting.
Thank you for listening.